Hah? 24 hours before the Butler assassination attempt, raising serious questions. So then after Butler, Mershon is visited in his cell by a team of FBI agents who want to know if he had anything to do with the attempt to kill Trump and Butler. They determined that he hadn't, they had no idea about it, but it raises further questions. And as one of them later told the Washington Post, if we had demonstrated that this Mershon guy had been sent by the IRGC, it would have meant war. They would have had to have attacked Iran.
And I just want to stop you there, Max, because as you know very well, immediately after 9/11, this was kind of the modus operandi of the FBI.
Yeah.
You would find these dead enders and essentially suggest particular plots and supply them with the money and the material to do it. I think in something like 90% of these cases where they have basically uncovered terrorist cells, exactly like this, they were essentially created by the FBI.
Completely. Trevor Arrington, the researcher, in his book, The Terror Factory, found that something like over 90% of terror busts during the Obama era by the FBI were manufactured plots. And the FBI agent who oversaw the Mershon case, this is a detail that might be a little bit hazy for me. He's the same FBI agent who oversaw the Detroit field office that spun out the phony Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, where Americans were told that these right-wing militiamen had plotted to kidnap the Democratic governor of Gretchen Whitmer. Turns out it was a controlled plot by the FBI. None of the defendants conceived the plot. The plot was completely conceived by paid FBI informants, but they were all convicted anyway. And when did we learn about this horrifying right-wing terror plot? In October of 2020. It was kind of like the October surprise that they dropped in order to, further implicate Donald Trump as an extremist. And, no fan of Trump, but it was pretty clearly a political ruse. So the same guy was involved. He was found in contempt of Congress, I believe, for lying about evidence. The FBI throughout this entire saga has proven itself to be one of the most corrupt institutions in American society and one of the most dangerous. So we go back.
There's also mention that there was another FBI manufactured plot to supposedly kill John Bolton.
Yes. This was another plot that involved confidential informants and never amounted to anything. It will, even they.
This is how I live on the Pretty Global. Start your comeback. And PurdueGlobal.edu.
commonplace. Tragically, our government engages in preemptive war, otherwise known as aggression, with no complaints from the American people. Sadly, we have become accustomed to living with the illegitimacy support by government. To develop a truly free society, the issue of nuclear force must be understood and rejected.
Because sometimes you love your country, even if you alter or abolish the government. What if Jefferson was right? What if no government is best which governs least? What if it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong? What if it is better to perish fighting for freedom than to live as a slave? What if freedom's greatest hour of danger is now? Hi everyone, Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. My guest is the great Professor Mohammad Marandi, who joins us live from Tehran. Professor Marandi, thank you for your personal courage in coming to the camera and microphones as you do every weekly. It is deeply and profoundly appreciated by the enormous audiences that you draw. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm good, Judge. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a great honor being on the show. And I'm a fan of the show, and I listen to it often.
What is life like in Tehran today? Do people go to work? Do they do shopping? Do students go to school? Do the police do their job? Does the fire department do theirs? Does the sanitation department do theirs?
The sanitation department actually does their work quite well because last night I was moving around and I saw them working near where I live. The streets are clean, but actually this is this period. This is the time for the country to be waging war because this is a national holiday. We think the Iranian New Year was basically it's the first day of spring, snow week, and we're effectively the country's closed for like 2 weeks, and so this is the second week of the holiday. Schools will open on Monday, and so will universities, and government agencies are sort of half open during the second week, meaning these days, and the next week they open. But under the circumstances next week, it will be like during Corona, where schools and universities will be online, and and government agencies, they will, I think, a lot of the employees will be working from home or from wherever they are.
Are people out in the streets? I mean, we're going to play a clip in a few minutes of Foreign Minister Arachi just amiably walking with large crowds in Tehran. But in terms of buying food, going to shops, buying clothing, putting fuel in your car, is that part of life normal?
Yes, that is all very normal, although in Tehran, because of the war and because of the New Year holiday, traffic is very light. Most shops are not open, but they will open on Monday. In other cities, though, it's very different because a lot of people who've left Tehran have they've gone to for vacation or they've gone to stay with family, depending on whether it's for vacation or because they want to be away from the aircraft. But other cities are more crowded and businesses are open, I would assume, in the tourist cities. But in Tehran, the last 2 weeks, businesses have been closed like every other year. But before the New Year, many were closed because of the war. So we'll have to see how things evolve on Monday. I think it'll probably get more crowded, there'll be more businesses open, but again, it won't be normal because of the war.
We have a clip of Foreign Minister Arachi in the streets of Tehran last night. It's about 46 seconds long. Because of the system that we're using to communicate with each other between Tehran and New York City, you and I
will not be able to see or hear it, but our viewers will. So Chris is going to play it now, and then I will read you the transcript of it so that you'll be familiar with what he says. He's walking through the streets. He has a hooded jacket on. He's recognized by a reporter. I don't know if he has security or not. They're not visible in the clip. He takes the hood off, he brushes his hair, and then very happily answers the reporter's questions. Chris, cut number 23.
I feel like you wanted to be among the people in a different way. Why?
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, I just came to lift my spirit. Seeing these people truly gives everyone a great sense of morale, and I am just a drop from among these people. I wanted to come among them, participate in this movement on the ground, lift my own spirit, and truly enjoy this unity and solidarity among the people.
So, how did you find it, Doctor?
It was excellent. It was excellent. One truly envies these people who, with so much motivation, passion, and such high spirit, are serving their country like this, protecting it, persevering, and maintaining social cohesion. May God give them all strength.
So here's the communication with Prime Minister Arachi. The reporter says, I feel like you wanted to be among the people in a different way. Why? The Prime Minister. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, I just came to lift my spirits. Seeing these people truly gives everyone a great sense of morale, and I am just a drop among these people. I wanted to come among them, participate in this movement on the ground, lift my own spirits, and truly enjoy this community. Reporter. So how did you find with so much motivation, passion, and like this, protecting it, preserving, and maintaining social cohesion? May God give them all strength. Is that consistent with your observations of the Iranian people? Or stated differently, how does Iran stay strong in the face of this horrific bombardment from the U.S. and the Israelis?
You know, Judge, the best example I can give where no one can say that this is AI or propaganda is the first week of the war. Immediately after the initial airstrikes, of the March of Ayatollah Khamenei, and and early next morning it was declared that he and other senior people were martyred, senior commanders were martyred. He wasn't. So for a week we didn't have a leader. And in accordance with the Constitution, of course, there was a council, but still, we didn't have a leader. And people went to the streets every night and during the day, and in huge numbers. And they're doing it every night, by the way, still right now. Every night. I drive across the city to go like the studio, and you could pass different groups, sometimes huge in the tens of thousands, sometimes just in a neighborhood, like 50 people, 100. It's just amazing. And so during that week, the country was completely calm. There were no queues or lines for gasoline. None of the supermarkets were full of people. No one was buying bread or anything else in an extraordinary way or out of season. The country moving forward. And the armed forces, of course, immediately began responding within less than an hour, if I'm not mistaken. So that just shows the high degree of legitimacy of the Islamic Republic, whether it's antagonists like that or not. And
Where are you?
every night these people on the streets, every night across that line. And Judge,
Oh, you want to go
3
in?
nights ago, I think,
Oh,
and
well,
here where I
I'm
was
not supposed to be.
a walking distance from there. In one of those local gatherings, near a square called Aristide Square, they fired a missile at this gathering, and a woman was martyred. So they continue to find missiles together.
as we did on another Iranians will make sure that remains. And it's very ironic. The president dropped his claim for a change of government equal regime change in Tehran. He has dropped his claim for the surrender of nuclear enriched material. He has dropped his claim for destruction, a self-destruction by Iran of its own ballistic missiles. Now his demand is opening the Strait of Hormuz. What's open? Before he started. Yeah, so you forget that where you are, it's still morning. So night is that it's 3 or 4 times. So maybe you will have those that nighttime. Who knows? But the only thing that's important for Iran is that the person gets the and make sure that it's never repeated again. And the Iranians aren't on this notion that things have gone over. In fact, the belief here is that escalation is on its way, that a major assault by the Americans will happen, and there will be a lot of the belief is that Americans will start taking attack chemically on Iranian products. We've already seen that happen, and we will have to watch it. So it's important to show the Israelis are now on poultry farms across the country. So you can imagine if they get talking at anything that they think that hurts ordinary Iranians. And of course, Iranians are going to retaliate. And I think that today, probably, and tomorrow, Iranians are going to be hitting hard and respond. But I think it's quite possible that on Friday, because you have a 3-day weekend and the markets will be closed for 2 weeks, I think there's a good chance that things will escalate at that rate. The president is going to address the country tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, New York City time. Last night he told a reporter in an offhanded way, I think this will be over in 2 or 3 weeks. It could be done. So some people expect him to declare a Mexican victory, and some people think that if he announces a defeat to come home, it's just a subterfuge to lull the Iranians into a false sense of security, as he attempted to do in June with the negotiations and in February with the negotiations. You are a student of American politics as well as literature, as well as Iranian politics. What do you think of that? What do you think the Iranians expect, the Iranian government, to hear from President Trump tonight? Well, Judge, you are an expert. I would never dare act as an expert in front of you. But I don't think that the Iranians have any idea what he's going to say, because as I was joking earlier, this morning when you are down by tonight, who knows what is going to change, and even if he says something tonight, who knows what he's going to say tomorrow, the day after. I think in Iran, they don't really take note of what he says. We've already seen him carry out this action multiple times. 9 months ago, we were negotiating, and then it turned out that all along he was deceiving Iran. He was planning for this to get after Netanyahu. And then before this war, we were negotiating the 4 minutes of Hamas, and there was progress, and then he has carried out war. Nothing that he says will have any impact in Tehran. In Tehran, the only thing that is important is that we stay in a way where we feel secure and that we feel that we will never be attacked again, and that reparations are made, and Iran will make sure that these Arab countries, of course, know that has been assisted, that if the U.S. does not come okay with them, that they will. And as I said, the prison bill, the Strait of Hormuz, it will be under a new type of management. And of course, Iran allies also will need to have to be
today at 10 o'clock this morning, Aaron Latte at 1 this afternoon. I'm not sure where he is, but we were planning to bring the professor Morandi's and the great Pepe Escobar at 1:45 here at National Cast.
What Iran has achieved after 18 days is truly a catastrophic failure and loss for the United States. For over 100 years, states have been trying to topple regimes with air power alone. And in 100 years, they have never succeeded. If we cross the Rubicon here, then we really are probably in Vietnam territory. We're finding out that Donald Trump has lost control. That's the issue I'm trying to really focus people on. Then enough of that to what I said. Iran is not listening to the stalemate power. Iran is more powerful now than before the war. These are statements not of some conservative on social media, but one of the most distinguished professors of political science in the US. His name is Professor Robert Page at the University of Chicago. He attends the Summit 317 and writes a subtext called The Escalation Trap. And it's a critique of the emerging conflict in Iran. And Professor Page, welcome to our panel. Thank you very much for having me.
I guess the first question would be, how do you justify those kinds of statements? A lot of observers see an almighty power in the United States, pretty much pulverizing a much inferior power in the shape of Iran, who is not able to do very much in response. How can you justify saying that Iran is more powerful now than before?
I have studied every air campaign in history, every air campaign since World War I, published a big book on each of them, many articles in foreign affairs. I spent years teaching targeting strategy for the U.S. Air Force, included leadership targeting strategy. I have also studied escalation dynamics for decades, and I've modeled on Iran in particular for 20 years. So my brain is not just a quick reaction, but quite a bit of understanding of the stages that we are now going through, which is what I put on that substack we call The Escalation Trap, which I started just before the bombing came and started in order to help people understand that we are going through very likely the predictable stages of what would happen, and that we are now at stage 3, and so far all stages have been fulfilled. So before we get into the stages, let me just directly answer your question. So Iran, after 18 days of war, are now controlling the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. It did not control that traffic before. To put this in some perspective, everybody now knows the Strait of Hormuz is 20% of the world's oil. But I will also explain that for 50 years, since the 1970s, America's number one grand strategic objective for the Middle East was not about Israel. It was about preventing a single state from controlling the 20% of the oil in the Persian Gulf, that is, controlling the Strait of Hormuz. So what Iran has achieved after 18 days, the extra power that it has gained, is truly a catastrophic failure and loss for the United States. And it is only beginning to exert the power that it now has. And that power is likely to grow over time. It will grow through destruction, leading to energy shocks throughout the world, which will lead to real trouble for the global economy over time. set out the stage for us so that we understand how we see the state of the USA and where you think we should so far. Stage one is tactical success. And we saw that as our smart bomb hit virtually all of the targets and killed leaders. Virtually 100% tactically successful. That's what we saw in the opening wave of the launch. But that would then lead to that tactical success, a strategic failure in this case, because the goal of regime change is really quite too far for us to reach. For over 100 years, states have been trying to topple regimes with air power alone. And in 100 years, it has never, and I'm choosing my words carefully, it has never succeeded. Also, Iran has enriched uranium. So you might say, okay, we don't topple the regime, maybe we just put on that 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium or the 10,000 pounds of 5 and 20% enriched uranium, which is so crucial for making weapons and other problems that Iran could throw us. Well, that too was not the case. And then stage one, they hit targets they don't achieve success. Stage two is where the enemy lashes back. And we've seen this in other precision campaigns before, but that lashing back has become a horizontal escalation campaign by Iran. I laid this out in Foreign Affairs in detail to explain the full strategy of horizontal escalation that Iran has unleashed. And that is what has led to damage in the Gulf states, but even more critically, the decline of shipping through the Persian Gulf by well over 95%. And they just hit another tanker just before we came on, a few hours before we came on. So that is being done with their drones. And their drones are precision guided weapons, not just kind of being thrown up in the sky and fall where they may. So now we are at the stage, the most dangerous and critical stage that I said, and I said this would be the most critical stage, which is the ground power dilemma. So now you've had stage one, the smart bombs hit their targets, and of course they're still doing that, but they're not leading to hard breaking the regime. The regime is harder today, more dangerous today. They haven't led to weakening Iran. Iran is more in control of world oil than it was 18 days ago. So what are you going to do? Well, you see that there's pressure to double down or go up the escalation ladder, and that is where the ground power dilemmas are coming in. And you're already seeing all the scenarios of mass out on all the cable channels, operating cars, coastal regions. This was always likely to come. I called it the ground power dilemma. And this is where we are. And this will be the most dangerous phase of the escalation trap because it'll be the pivotal phase. It'll be the phase after we go through it, we cross the Rubicon here, and we really are probably in Vietnam territory. That is a very, very long war. That's my view on where we are, the stages we're at. And by the way, this was, again, the modeling that I've done for 20 years at the University of Chicago. I teach a big class on strategy here at the end of every spring, 90 minutes on laying out what to expect with the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran. Been doing this for 20 years, the double tap attack, B2s, and all of that. And so this is exactly the normal trajectory of what to expect once we went down this road.
And in your model or in your framework, how does it end?
It ends by us going deeper and deeper here. President Trump is now on the horns of a dilemma. There's no golden off-ramp here. So he's got the choice sitting right in front of him. He can try to cut a deal with Iran, but that's going to be a big political loser for him because Iran's not just going to give this up, give up power and say, oh yeah, sure, we're going to hand this back and let you wallow us again after a year. So Iran is going to want a pretty big price here, and you hear the foreign minister talking about this, and that will be a big price for Donald Trump to pay, but possibly recoverable for his presidency. If he goes further, and he's rejected these deals all the way through,
through the third stage of the escalation trap, then I think we're in Lyndon Johnson territory. And for your listeners who were certainly not alive but may not know, President Lyndon Johnson was president during the Vietnam War, the critical years of the Vietnam War, and it was spring 1968 that he was doubling down his escalation until it became absolutely crystal clear it was a total failure. And that's when his presidency dissolved, and he became essentially the worst president that America's ever had. He had to, he didn't lose the presidency, but he had to drop out of being reelected. His party lost disastrously in the 1968 presidential elections. And notice that we have a similar election rhythm here in our country. This is spring, we have the midterms coming, and so there's really an enormous amount at stake here. There's at stake with Iran, the Gulf states, there's the global world's economy, and then there's also President Trump's presidency and politics in the United States. This is what is at issue in the escalation. And this, by the way, has been my specialty of not just focusing on how bombs hit targets, but when I talk to the U.S. Air Force and when I teach, I'm connecting military action to politics. Politics in the target government, politics in the attacker, politics in the world. So I see strategy is not how to put a bomb on a target, that's tactics. What I do is I do strategy, which is how do you actually end up with political end states. And what are those political end states you're going to end up with? That has to do as much or more with politics as the military hardware.
Professor, I'm now going to try and argue against you. And you can explain to me and to our listeners why I'm wrong.
And by the way, I teach at the University of Chicago. We believe in intellectual Darwinism. So this is the way to really get into things. So I appreciate that.
So point one, the hard power aspect, the actual level of degradation of Iran's capabilities. I feel like you somewhat underestimate or skip over there. I've got a few figures that I'd like to share. So Iranian ballistic missile launches have fallen by more than 90% over the last 2.5 weeks. 350 of them on February the 28th, 25 on March the 14th. That is the best data we have. Drone launches have gone down from more than 800 on day 1 to 75 on day 15. So this is a complete collapse of their military capability. Their naval assets, their attack craft, submarines, gradually all of these are being liquidated by the United States. And even those small launches that they're able to do to attempt to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz and land occasional strikes, every time they do that, they reveal a new launch capability, which is then pulverized by the United States. So you could make quite the opposite case, that in hard power terms, the United States has been extraordinarily successful, and Iranian prospects look pretty bleak.
So you're looking at the wrong metrics of hard power. I'm not going to make a soft power argument to you. You're just, and that's not you. That is Secretary Hegseth is doing that, and that's the victory narrative. And what that is the tactical success we have in reducing the visible hardware Iran has for toe-to-toe set-piece conventional battles. So if we were going to fight a naval war with Iran, where our Navy goes up against its Navy, that would matter. If we were going to fight a tank war or a conventional war with Iran, where we're going to have two armies clashing on the battlefield, these metrics would matter. But they don't matter, and they don't matter really much at all. And it's similar to Vietnam. See, in Vietnam, we had a version of this that was called the body count. And it became known after Vietnam as the body count fallacy. Because what Lyndon Johnson did, very similar to what the Hegseth is doing here, is he kept recounting how many VC we had killed or captured in that guerrilla war. And the numbers kept mounting. The problem is that the opponent has a strategy, and it's actually a military strategy, and it's a military strategy connects to politics. It's a long war strategy, which is about imposing costs on the United States, the world, and the GCC countries. focusing on how to hit, sort of our missile batteries exactly. It's not that tit for tat they're playing. What they're playing is a game of imposing costs long term with tiny numbers of attacks. And those tiny number of attacks are things we can't thwart. You see what I mean? And that's what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, literally on an hourly basis here. It's not that they're using 10,000 drones. No, they're using tiny numbers of drones, tiny numbers of mines, and these are producing inordinate costs on the world. And that is how they have gained political
I
leverage.
guess there must come a threshold, however, beneath which they can't impose those costs on the US and the rest of the world. I mean, if they really run out of those mine-laying capabilities, the anti-ship missiles, there will be a threshold at which it's just not even at the Houthis level, it will just be a nuisance.
You're quite right. It's just that you're not taking into account that threshold may be something we can never dip below. You see, so it's not that that's not logically correct. Of course, that's logically correct, that they're literally down to zero. But the problem here is that they produced 55,000 drones for Russia last year. So that's, if you're talking about going down from 55, we don't know what the number actually is, but just imagine how far down you have to go to get to 0 drones. And maybe 3 drones a day would be enough, you see. And what about the 5,000 mines? You see, so only a handful of mines is going to be plenty here for them to solve this problem. And then what about their ability to regenerate the drones?
Not good. So you're right about the clothes, of course. I mean, they're all plastic. I don't know if they're originals or not, but they're all, yeah, they're all plastic. Yeah. And then,
55,000 drones. That's not the idea here. The idea is if they can produce as few as, say, 20
so
drones
the back
a week,
one that I'm on, which is goes 1, 3, 2, 4. So right now I got the compression tester number 4, which is a fixed gun, and there's not left on there. I still haven't tested the other 3. No, this one here, 3 I haven't tested yet. This one had 165, and I'm hearing online is one of these between 165 and 185, 187 or something. A couple people have different opinions on that. That one was 185 instead of that. So 1 and 2 were the ones I got written down.
Conventional battle, I mean, on the battlefield. That's not what the story is.
Point number 2, the Strait of Hormuz is also critical for Iran. People don't seem to focus enough on the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is also how Iran sells its oil. And more than the to sustain what is left of its economy. And
Didn't move at all.
I'm Iranian oil via that channel. It's China and various other people who will still do trade with it, not particularly Europe, and almost not at all the United States. So you can make the argument that actually it's Iran who is self-defeating by keeping that strait closed, and they're not going to be able to sustain it for very long.
So one of the things we haven't mentioned is I've also studied economic sanctions for 30 years. I've made these huge articles, studied this problem, so I've studied a lot of these dimensions. So if we look at taking Iran's oil off the market, what that effectively means is making the supply lower for the world. So if we take Iran's oil off the market by shutting it down, which of course we can, notice what that's going to do is take even more oil off of the market and make the price of oil go up even more. We ran into this problem with Russia. So that's one of the reasons why we fought this war with Russia for 4 years, and we can't persuade ourselves to take Russian oil off the market. The reason is because of inflation, bond rates, interest rates. These are the real possibilities. But let's say you even did that. Let's say, okay, we're going to pay the price. We're going to have $8 a gallon gas.
I just looked it up. I'm not going to pretend I know this off the top of my head, but Iran is 4% of the world's oil market. Russia is 11%.
Nothing.
varies on the margins.
Later in the sound, I thought it was gonna be the other side, but just so while you're here, this will also verify some tools.
Now, I'm not saying it's gonna double, but it's going to make it go up more, and that's just an economic fact of life here. And that 4% is plenty enough to add on top of the problems we already have. But
I'm pretty sure that I would have looked it up again anyway, but
pay the price. We're gonna
they
say,
all would have been somewhere in the same range. Right, I would have, but I'm pretty sure
per month, and it's because we think the
Even if it's
sanctions essentially are going to wreck the regime.
well, even if it's dead, right? I mean, right.
Yeah, because they're allowed to probably take
Yeah.
pounds.
We've had
Yeah, it's optimal. 185 is optimal. It doesn't
You
get
know, Donald Trump now is talking about invading Cuba. That hasn't gone very well. We had economic sanctions.
Yeah.
All the way through 2003.
No, it was about 190.
Okay, good. Alright, that's even better than what I got earlier.
And that didn't work either. Now, why is that? It's because when you take
So we got one bad,
money
two
out
bad.
of
I mean, one
society,
side bad.
Yeah,
but that-
So we got to take that head off.
yeah.
You're empowering the
Yeah,
government
weird,
more. You're not shifting the
I'm just
balance
either
to
gonna go
the
like
Dutch.
this.
What you're
Because it
doing
is this one top dead center
making
thing.
the more
It's the whole
beholden
thing,
on
the
Hawk
piston goes this
to
far
get a
past
little
the
bit that
cylinder
are
into the head, that's why.
the
So
13
you got
years
three,
of
what's happened is those three guys are out at the same time. I thought it was gonna be these three, but in this case it was these three. Maybe it was bing bang hit, bing bang
Probably
hit,
because
you
see
know?
where it broke somewhere on that side.
Because the logic
Yeah, that's where you saw the
it was a logic problem. What we
Yeah,
did is we
yeah.
made Saddam more
Yeah,
powerful.
it was.
In
So
other words,
that
he was a
might be
bigger
why those
fish
ain't
in
green
the
like that.
smaller pond that we created, and that is what will
I'm
happen
surprised you don't
here.
hear no
So
noise.
we're talking
Well, 'cause
about
I thought
fighting
that
a
too, but
protracted
more
war of
videos I'm watching, it's
conventional
gonna get
armies on
bad.
the battlefield.
I'm used to
This
valves
will all
breaking.
matter.
You know, if valves break and they end up in
I
the there.
know even if they're bent, they make a lot of noise.
Yeah, if they're hitting, you're right.
Because
You're
they
right.
would
They'd be hitting on
clack and back and forth.
Right, right. If they're hitting, but they're saying, a lot of people are saying that, when
These don't touch.
well, they just bend a little bit, and because it's never gonna come close again anyway, because it's never gonna be on that stroke now that you got the right timing belt, so it just might be bent out a little bit, and it's not hitting on itself, so it's not hitting on the head, and it's not enough to hit the piston. You know what I mean? It's just a little tiny bang, and that's what's allowing it. The other one is if it's on if the leak is on the piston side, and it knocked around the piston, the chunk goes down into the oil pan. And you're also not gonna know about it. The magnet's gonna pick it up, and it's gonna be a little hole like this in the piston. That's why I was asking you guys about a scope camera, so we can make sure and see what's going
Yeah,
on
yeah.
before we take the next step to say, all right, let's take the heads off and get into that. Because if you got a hole in the pistons over here or something, that's another story too. Right,
Then you'd have to replace
with a scope.
everything.
Right, then you might as well pull the fucking motor out. And that's something that we were talking about. I was just going to get a pad and pen when when you popped in, because we gotta just go over we gotta look at the numbers on it. I mean, you know, we gotta look at the numbers. And the more I'm watching these videos and stuff like that, with this particular vehicle, because of what it is, I mean, I do like them just as much as you, but you gotta be considerate about your pocketbook and what it's gonna be worth. I totally agree with you about the value of helping you replace it for the same amount. But what I'm noticing with the Subarus though, I already allowed things, and I want to be upset that everyone's raised over there is upset at me for being honest with them, telling them the truth. Everyone's upset. I can tell you and your kid were getting upset with each other. Don't let everyone go in there. So, alright, so here you go. That pulley down here that we talked about, any of these Chinese parts. Now, this one said Canada, right? The one that we were most important on. Okay. So when you look them up online, even the person that I'm gonna call for help with this, that dude Mike Matthews, he's gonna tell me the same shit when I start talking. Right? So he's gonna say, okay, I got a motor for you. I can give it to you for $800. I can install it, put it in. He's got a tow truck. He'll come and pick the fucking thing up, right? So he can do all this stuff to get it in there. But I know he's gonna have the same. I don't know if there'll be demands, but knowing the type of mechanic he is, it might be. He's gonna say, listen, I'll sell you a motor. You know, I tell you, but gotta do head gaskets on it, it's got 150,000 miles on the motor, and I'm not gonna sell it to you unless you're willing to do this. He's gonna wanna do it, so you're gonna say to yourself, shit, that's an extra fucking $800 and shit, you know. No, I just wanna buy it. You might, you know, depending on how he is, right? But it's the smart way to do it, according to what everybody's saying. Because if you don't
Yeah, but
do
it's
it,
not.
not required, not required.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, when we got into this, to go that little bit there,
Right.
is a lot less than going out and getting a motor.
If it's not in a
And
piston,
then you have to turn around.
if it's not the piston only, if it's not a hole in the piston, I'm
If
talking
it's a hole in the
about-
piston, that's another thing underneath, that's taking the piston out.
Right, but you don't wanna do that with the in the vehicle, that's a pain in the balls. I don't even know if you can drop the oil pan on this without, killing the motor, can you?
I don't know, because I think that's the pull, that's the hole, hold the motor.
It is, I looked at it again today after you mentioned it, cause I'm thinking myself, alright, it's just, yeah, it is, they made the mount down there,
You got the mount down there for it.
and I'm sure you still got a chain in other places, though, I don't think.
Oh, I mean, there's another one probably under here.
Yeah, I'm assuming like there's a big bolt right here, right, there's a huge one that goes right to the training right
Yeah.
there, it looks like it. I'm surprised it don't have a hook on it, that's how big it is.
Yeah.
So it might be that one, this is probably
Right,
the center
there's,
chain.
right, that's only one spot. You know you're not gonna pick up the whole motor with just that little spot.
Right, so even if the motor does come up this way, I'm just saying, it's still a lot of work, so if you wanted to rebuild this motor, I agree with you, that's a better idea than even buying another motor for $1,000.
And then have to do everything we just did.
Definitely, definitely, I agree with you, but that's my whole point. Once you do that stuff, right, let's say you talk into it and I'm going along with you, this is why I wanna call you out on some of this stuff, just
Yeah.
make sure you're doing the right thing. So you get through this, let's say it's worst case scenario, it's the pistons, you're right, it's easier to pull motor, even then,
So, yeah, let's say we just.
Lemke would be cheap to even rebuild the motor. So even if you took your motor in, I don't see how busy he is, if it ends up being that bad. If not, just take the head out and bring it downtown, let him
Let
machine
that
the
guy
head.
machine it right across from the,
Right, right, so if it goes either one of those ways, okay, so now it's gonna go either one of the ones. Now, that time, we added up on a piece of paper, you're probably gonna be looking at, let's say, another $1,500 probably, I'm guessing, by the time it's done, everything's said and done to get all that done, right? So, now we're back to putting the car back together, it runs like a fucking top. But, we got a Canadian thing in here, which everyone's making a big deal of. I'm only telling, it's not like this is my knowledge from years of studies. I'm just pointing it out because everyone online saying, look, look at Canadian pulley or any of them, there's only two pulleys. That's why I'm saying watch the videos. Japanese pulley and Subaru factory pulley. If it comes from Japan, you're all set. We saw Canadian.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are saying definitely if it's Chinese, no bucks, right? The other one was this pulley down here. Everybody's saying that no one even makes a double pulley for it except for the dealership. That's the one that I actually used last, I was telling you, on the belt. It goes up like this on the end. Okay, so for some reason, none of them that you get from any other order in those kits or anywhere come with the double pulley. So it's a single pulley. It's usually one of the main failing parts. The other one is the one I told you with the sprocket on it. They said that one's worth, if you buy a $300 kit, the belt you're good with. If the sometimes you get lucky and the other parts will be Japanese, you're all good. But anything that you see that's off, it's worth going and buying it, right? So if you get done with all this, and then something pops off in the front again, because we got an expensive part, and it's only those three, and I would not have known this. So I'm just mentioning it, you know.
yeah, well, if it turns out to be a part in there that's failed,
It will.
I have the receipts.
Right, but it's too late, it's gonna blow the motor again, is what I'm saying. It blows the, anything going with the timing belt, this is a known, it's almost like a trick in the trade.
Yeah, I know, but
That
then
they
you
put it
also,
out there.
the thing is, this side might be good.
I'm sure this is, yeah.
So we only have that one
Yeah,
side.
that's my compression, so you can test this one. Yeah.
No, you didn't test this one.
I didn't do it.
No, just test the other one.
Germans and others said, no, well, what you're seeing here is these are the price of Greenland, so.
You're good. It was 180.
The second big point
And that's, I read it wrong the other time, but it was right about the same thing, but there was a little leak too, because you could hear it. So it would have gone further, and the other one might have gone further, it might have went to 185, and this one was about,
Here, you gotta get Israel to
right
stop
about where it's
bombing
at
and
now,
assassinating
which would have been what,
Iranian leaders whenever
75?
they seem fit. You gotta
in the
get
middle's
Russia to
165.
stop providing military
So 165, but that's still
intelligence to
good.
the Iranians to help them with
It's
their
funny how they're
targets.
opposite now.
You've
They
got to
represented
to get back to straight
Yeah,
on
because this one was
So,
165
if
before, unless I
Donald
remember
Trump
it wrong.
and these
Yeah.
other three
It's the other way around before, it was 185.
Well, this was
It's
leaking.
not an end to the war. See, this is one of the things the Democrats in the
When you were
United States have
when
now
you turned it
figured
over,
out.
you could hear
And I
it.
know that I'm dealing with a lot of them in the various media and other ways.
No, it's within range.
And what you could do is just have a way where you're just gonna pass Trump
I was talking so much,
for a
I
while,
probably couldn't
then he'll pull back and forget about
It leaked more this time. We got about the same amount, but you
Okay.
could actually see the mist come out.
Really focus people on. We have lost control, and so these ideas, well, Trump will just walk away, he'll do Cuba. What he's doing in the Oval Office yesterday is trying to project he's in command. He has control of the situation. This is Lyndon Johnson, because what really sunk Johnson's
I don't know.
presidency
I
was
said,
when the
okay,
world
yeah, maybe that's
figured
what I'm doing.
out, not
So when I'm on there,
not just Republican, not just the other parties,
Yeah,
and the
okay.
world figured out he had lost control. That's when the bottom really fell out, and it fell out like that. And so this is really. And so that's why I
Crank
chose
from
to
one side to the other.
Yeah, that's about 190.
Okay, and then, when I'm on this side, it's just, you know, you can even hear it.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
like no compression.
Right, well, that side showed no compression.
Yeah.
It was zero.
They're more dangerous on the economic.
I mean, I would have
I'm gonna
hated
check
it
the
if it was
price.
this and this.
You know, I had a scope like that before, they're actually fairly cheap. I'll see if there's, the auto points cheap, because the one I had was a science one, and it goes right on the cell phone.
Do they give you,
Look right at the cell
do they
phone.
give you a discount?
Napa? Well, you got a Napa discount?
Oh, I got Napa, I got O'Reilly, and I got the other one. I might get a discount because first of all, I'm a senior. Second of all, I'm a disabled thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, once in a while, he'll give me a discount, depends.
So that's why I'm
Not
hoping
got a
that
discount, yes, what do you got?
you'd only get like 10%.
He probably gets more,
We have a bit of terrorism here, but the real terrorism.
If I complain about it, he usually will give me a discount anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
He'll do that, even though I'm a nobody.
Well, you're not nobody.
I try to do that because
You do a lot of work.
I bring him a lot of customers, so I do.
And I do O'Reilly as much as I can, more than Napa, only because Napa's, there was only one or two people there happened. Takes a while to get somebody.
Right.
And the kids that I knew that were working there part-time when they were going to school.
Right, right.
All the older guys are gone. Maybe one or two still around.
It's still a corporate thing for me. That's what it's all about. Anything that's a corporation.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the people that work in there, do something like Riley's, I recognize, my old friend Jen's, friends, neighbors and stuff that
Yeah.
work in there, and, other people,
And O'Reilly's a big,
yeah, even your son, I wouldn't have noticed that he worked at Lowe's. I would have put two and two together. I would have walked past him and he looks still
if
there.
you ever need anything,
Yeah.
I mean, not like, well, even him, he can get a 10% discount.
Yeah.
But I can get one, I walk in with you and I get a 10% discount.
Yeah. They actually asked me to sign up quite a bit for stuff like that. If I don't buy it for something for myself, I don't think I'm gonna bother with that.
Yeah.
Cause I don't, that's like Big Brother shit. My name's gotta go on the computer.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So I will take you up on that.
All right.
Everything will be in your name, right? So
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I don't like Big Brother watching my shit at all. I even get offended, I have to use a big Y card to save 25, 30 bucks on the groceries. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know what time I'm at fucking Walmart, you know what I buy. You know how much money I had on me, even if I
Yeah.
say I'm broke.
Yeah.
But gee, you got fucking $300 a week to spend on food. Assholes. Anyways, Okay, so all the chambers, both sides, were filled with the water and the oil, just like we thought, right?
just like we thought.
The air cleaner was filled with shit, so it's
Yeah.
gonna need an air filter and clean
Yeah.
shit. It's not even worth putting them back in there so bad.
No.
But I'm explaining some of the choking that was going on yesterday.
Yeah.
Even more so than even worse than that.
Yeah, because these weren't doing anything. It was only
Yeah.
those two.
And then those are being choked out by that. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it probably would have stayed running even longer. And maybe ran a little smoother. It was doing pretty fucking good for the 2 cylinders.
Yeah, I know it.
Pretty
But
good.
it was running when it didn't have this though, because this is what takes power out of it.
Yeah, I think you were right. That night we were trying it, I think the power came through here. It must have gone back to the ECN, right? Or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So, or maybe it goes down to one of the crank sensors to tell you, all right,
Something.
you shut down, or at least put a trouble light on because your alternator's dead. So put a trouble light on. So there's got to be some kind of connection.
Yeah.
And you know, it might not say alternator, just engine light, put a scanner on it. And I didn't check the scanner again yet because I was looking for everything mechanically and manually this time, and then ended up finding it. So before, like I said, before we do it, because I mean, I can handle the head job,
Yeah.
but I'm not so sure I can handle the pull the freaking motor and
Right.
do the whole lower end. That's why I was trying to pound it off on Mike Lemke or somebody with those Subaru stuff. Because if
Well, if we pulled it, we saw a hole in it, then we can send it to
you
him.
know that way too. Yeah, that's true. Just pull the rest of the motor off.
Funding processes of government so that they can impose their radical agenda on the American people when we can't.
But I
have
still
it
think it's better now because all of this will be taken care of. And if he gets 100,000 miles out of it, he's got his money out of it. I only paid 800 for the car. What's it about?
I'm just saying,
Okay, 7 there.
Right there with this doing that though, in order for you to do it right, you're gonna want to do it right. I just don't believe that you're gonna get this whole head out because that means all this gotta come out, and you know that. So everything's gotta come out to get the head, and then you're gonna look at this side and say, gee, see, look in here right here. Look at my flashlight. See that head gasket in there?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking at the day that Ray came back with it new. Now,
Yeah.
I cannot see somebody. Yeah, see, it looks new to me.
Yeah, as you
Right.
see, it's blue on it.
Right. So even if you do something,
That was my watch. My phone.
so even the what I'm saying is that you did do that. So even if this was a junkyard motor, which I don't believe it is, you could see some writing somewhere or something
Right.
saying the mileage and shit. So I think it was the original motor. You did do the head gaskets because you promised to do them. And you kind of had to because you would have known anyway. If you would have showed up and there was a bunch of shit in here, you would have said, oh, you can put some shit in there. And I could have swore we did find some shit over there at one point, and that's what gave us a heads up. And I thought it was pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Ray, you might have known that you just wanted to get rid of it. So you put some of that in there. And Ray wanted to put that about the I think you might just want to blow it down the road. So the head gaskets are done. So you may be right there. If it's proven that head gasket was done less than 10,000 miles ago, okay, then I'm on board. But if we get in there and I say, oh, sorry, my mistake, I'm looking at it a little better down here. He never did the head gasket.
Right.
You know, so, or maybe he did the same thing and only did one side or something like that.
Yeah, maybe he did a compression test on this side where I couldn't see it.
This is
I couldn't see
a
it.
brutal war of aggression by Israel and the United States.
So you
And
know
Iran is
Probably
responsible.
just did one side.
Not surprising that they are responding. They're under threat of West Asia.
Okay.
What Trump said.
There should be still see it freaking right in
Israel.
Oh, okay, you see it.
Yeah,
I didn't see the blue.
I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
got it. I just got
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I didn't
All
see
right, so you
it.
did both sides. So
Yeah.
see what I mean? So that means if the timing belt shit did not go, then this freaking shit wouldn't have happened. So we're gonna do all that shit and put all that money into it, and then at the same time, I'm putting it in the back of your mind and saying, Mike better not continue right now because I wanna get at least years out of it before the bell goes again, and I have to do all this shit again.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe the other side next time, who knows, depending on where it is when it blows. So, you know, the belt is worth doing it. There's too many guys, you know, play it cheap. If you're selling the car, for example, if you knew you were selling it, then you might say, you know, I'm not gonna freaking Because it's a big difference.
Yeah.
That one on its own is $80-something just for the tensioner, right? On the cheap kit.
Yeah,
But then you buy the one from Subaru, for example, the best one you can get, at least you get 150,000 miles out of it, and five something, like 537.
Yeah, I don't know, 'cause they only had two kits, and the one they had that was more expensive, it's $100 more,
Right,
they didn't even have it.
right,
This was the only kit they had.
right. But not from Subaru.
No, from wherever.
Yeah. So that's one part that everyone says go to Subaru for. Then the other one that I'm hearing in the last couple of days is this one because of the double bearing. Everyone's like, I wouldn't even notice, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But these other bearings, they're right. They're all double bearings in there. So they're a lot stronger for the tension that them fucking things are holding, right? So they're saying this is a failure point, that's a failure point, that's a failure point. So seeing that it's from Canada, it's on the no-no list. Only Japan or Subaru are approved. The Japan one is cheaper than the Subaru one. So if you one from Japan, you may pay. If you make sure that it is. So if the guy came out and opened every kit, you're gonna look at, you're gonna say everything but Japan. You have to ask them specifically, I want this one from Japan. I mean,
You might have to buy them individual.
We'll see as we go along. I gotta tell you this stuff because I'm watching all the videos, and if no one knows about it,
Yeah.
then, you know, at least you have it back in your mind, you
Yeah.
can make that decision later, you know.
Yeah.
Once everything's apart and everything like that, you're thinking about it, and you say, all right, it's an investment, I really want to buy it. You know, I've gotta look at the mileage and shit, what he expects to get out of it.
Yeah, but he's driving this as a winter car. So right about this time, he wouldn't even have this car on the road, he'd have his Mustang.
Alright.
But his Mustang needs work, because you remember he said the rocker cover was broken?
Yeah,
Because it's a,
So the
see
thing
this
is,
oil
he
thing?
made it sound like an ATV. Oh, yeah.
No, it was this oil thing is built in to the cover, and it's plastic,
Okay.
and they snapped it. And it's almost $500 just for that one. He said he could get it online from True, but I don't know. I mean,
Why did they want so much? It's a filler.
because it's a plastic, yeah, but it's also the rocker cover. It's the whole rocker cover, it's all one piece. 2005.
Is there a single, is he only, what is it, horizontal?
Might be a 6. It's a 6, I think. Yeah, he's got a 6 in this one.
So, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
So
instead of
this-
this-
So it's not a long neck, it's just this much of it is built into the valve cover.
Right.
And then, right, the same
It
reason.
sticks out of the valve cover about this high.
Right, the same reason like on raised PVC valves, I've never changed them because of the same thing you're talking about. I warned them, I said, if I try to pull it out, it's gonna fall down in, so let's take it out, that's what you're describing, right? So someone broke the neck out, and it fell down in.
No, it didn't fall in. It just, you can't get it to stay. So the thing's broken and it leaks oil and compression.
Yeah, you're right, it is.
Because there's no back pressure from it.
He's able to take it out, though, right? You get it to me?
Think,
Is it already out?
no, it's not.
Because I'm just thinking, why not just drill a hole larger than the brake, right? Because oil is broken, just drill a hole out, put your own gasket around it, and your own setup, really.
Well, you would have to have it threaded. The threaded part's broken.
We can go back to 1953 when the
I
United
should look
States
that one up later.
deposed
look
a
this up and see what it
Democratically
looks like,
elected
because
prime
I'm
minister
picturing like
brought in a
maybe
police
make
state
one
for several decades. We can go
You
to
just
the
need a
war that the
circular
United
gasket on the
States
outside, as
supported
long as that's
against
sealed
Iran,
really tight
against
around
Iran
how
in
you
the
go by,
1980s.
then you
We
should
can
be
go
able
to
to.
a long
And depending on what it's
list of
made out of,
assassinations
fiberglass,
by
plastic.
Mossad and CIA in recent years. What Iran is saying is.
And he's seen it for as high as almost $500.
And
Ages for
the
that.
I would see if they sell it metal one,
in the
maybe
gold.
you get for $100.
That's what he asked, but he ain't heard nobody tell him anything.
That is trying to
Like
destroy
the
us.
metal ones, you know.
The metal one would be cheap. I I don't know why they wouldn't have it,
Yeah.
because all you're doing is pouring the oil in anyways, whether it pours here or it pours here. As long as the cover has clearance, that's what you want.
We're talking about valve cover, guys.
Yeah, it's a valve cover.
It's not hidden. It's
I never heard plastic either. That's the first time I ever saw one.
Yeah.
Or the uranium.
Unless they're carbon fiber, maybe.
They can't be, because they wouldn't have broken changing oil.
If the world stood up
It's
and
strong
told
and it holds
Mr. Trump,
on.
go home,
Yeah.
you're not gonna take this.
I mean, I've never even heard of a carbon fiber.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of carbon fiber plastic bumpers and carbon fiber hoods.
Yeah.
Air shit maybe that don't.
Yeah.
Temperature.
Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as President
That
Trump,
would just
underestimate,
keep weight off.
the Iranian military, not just its battle.
Yeah. So that's what's wrong with his. It needs that. It probably need a tune-up, because I don't believe
Nuclear armed countries
had one
in this,
since he got it. He got it either last year or the year
vastly
before.
superior military.
So it wouldn't hurt to have a tune-up.
The United
Yeah.
States,
But the biggest thing is that cover.
getting on, has underestimated its adversaries.
You know what year it is, right?
Yep, 2005.
The United States
2005 Ford Mustang.
declared victory
Yeah.
in days or weeks, only to find that the wars extended years or decades with the United States.
And if you're standing on the engine, it's the driver's side, so it'll be the left side. No, right side. Right side. Because you're looking at it from the front. It's the right side.
Driver's side.
Right side, yeah.
Completely misjudged Iran. Totally. They said so.
Let me look at some pictures of it and shit, right? And then I'll let you know. Cause I'm thinking I just take, just like I drilled out that wheel.
Can I use the backside of one?
You took a piece of paper.
I don't need the whole thing.
Oh, I know, I know what you're describing, I just never seen
And
one
it's
flat.
just like this. It sticks out like this.
That far, huh?
Yeah. And the cover's here, and then this is broken off right about here.
As I mentioned,
Oh, that's a real easy fix then. Does he still have the parts?
Oh, you still got the broken pieces, and you still got the cap. But see, the cap has a thread that you have to use.
Yeah, that's fine. And the gasket on the cap is okay.
Yeah.
So it's just this crack part.
It's broken.
Alright, broken right off.
Broken right off.
Alright.
So what he did is we took some the weld,
Yep,
JB weld,
yep,
and put it around that, and put it back in place, but
Right.
it didn't hold. Either because it didn't hold, because somebody, when they went to put oil in it, made it move again.
Well, you definitely have to properly, because there's so much oil in there that you'd have to prep it properly. And what I would say to do, I got a couple other ideas on sealing that even better. Because you gotta eliminate, there's so much oil saturated into that plastic area, and that plastic's made of oil and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So even fiberglass has a hard time sticking to it. Even if I was to hit it with a grinder
Yeah.
and get real thick into it, with my grinding wheel,
Right.
the plastic would still have a hard time bonding to the fiberglass, because the fiberglass has no oils in it. It's a whole different base, right?
Right.
So I would say wrapping this kind of like we would do with something with PVC pipe for plumbing in the house. Something along those lines would be better to do with this. And you have to know, like you're drawing this line right close to the top.
Well, yeah,
Does it really come close? Does it come, or is it down here a little more?
No, it's because when it's on there,
Yeah.
to see it, it go like this.
This is a brutal,
But I don't know
but
if
it's
it's
away
like the
from
whole
lid.
thing.
Alright,
it is a rogue, brutal regime.
This comes off
yeah,
because it's broken.
right.
I mean, if you
Right,
open
you
the
take
cover,
the
it
cap, it
falls
just
right
comes right
out.
off, right.
But it's cut at an angle like that. It's broken like that. So every time they go to do something, they put pressure on it.
I gotcha.
That's why
Sure,
it
that's
doesn't
true.
hold.
It's true, okay. Alright, so just so you got what I got in my mind, I got like 2 or 3 things. I know I'm not gonna have the right size one, but I have the idea that I can show you.
Right, I know what you're saying.
So, like the ones with the clamp on both sides, right? So you can get them in the plumbing section if I know what size it's gonna be.
Right.
And it's gonna have a clamp here, a piece of rubber, and even if the thing comes up a little bit higher or whatever, who gives a shit, right? So all the clamp's gonna do is gonna eliminate any issues with what do I have that's gonna bond where all this oil is all the time? Nothing, right? So you're just taking away that by doing the two clamps. That's my idea. So now that you know what I'm thinking,
I know what
you
you're
just do
thinking.
that. Yeah, you just do that. You don't even need me for that thing. I'm not gonna bother writing it down. But if you do, let me know.
Because they have different PVC, black PVC plating.
Exactly. So even if you go right, what I would do is grab it, take it with you, the broken piece. Don't even have to take the valve cover off or nothing. Go to Lowe's. It's the very back
I know where they
corner.
are.
Yeah,
I know.
And they got all different sizes.
Yeah.
See if you can find it. You're all set. And then at worst case scenario, I'm thinking that let's say the brake is real close to the neck and you won't have nowhere for the clamp. Then what you do is, because of what you're using it for, you can just cut the rubber so that you can bump it up a little bit higher. Because what do you care if that extra ridge is at the end of there in that situation, right? So this way the cap comes down, it'll sit tight onto the rubber of the piece. So it's a good idea. Yeah, then he'll be all set. And then you'll have something to drive while he's waiting for this. It might take a little while.
Yeah. I know it's not gonna be easy. You got all this shit. You got all this shit in the way.
You know, it's great. I mean, it gives me something to do. It gives him a good car when you're done. I mean, I'm all for all of it. It's just that I feel bad every time something goes.
Well, we
because
knew
there's
that
something
there
more and
could be
more
more.
goes. I know.
But this is
No,
the
you were
last of
hopeful.
it,
You
basically.
were very hopeful.
Well, I know,
You know.
but
So I hate
but
breaking
it's
your
not
heart.
breaking anything. And this thing isn't clacking all over the place.
Right.
This was quiet until we put some plugs on it. And, you know, had the thing going with pressure. But these things are all a pain in the ass to take off. Luckily, I don't know for sure, but this might just undo from here.
Yeah, the whole time about shit's gonna come back off and stuff. For this, right? Yeah.
Oh,
For this, to get the health off and shit. It looks like it.
It might have to because of the can, right?
Yeah. So the whole time about the whole thing down, it's not over anyway, except, for labor. So, you know what I mean?
You know,
So,
but hey,
I think all of this shit.
I don't think we have to take all of it.
This one I'm still not sure about. This one probably not at all. Nothing on there.
Right. I would say this one.
Maybe
possibly.
all this, it is easier to get all the belt stuff out, to take these out, and it's worth it because.
But what if the belt is just lifted out?
Either way, when you go to put it back on, you don't always tie anything. Well, no, you gotta, how do I know if you move down the line somewhere that wants to do that? That's risky, man. I wouldn't want to try.
Is this all one cover?
This cover comes off for some stupid reason. Oh, that was only for me. I don't know why they want that. But this came out.
Yeah, I know.
1.2 volts, not the end of the road.
Yeah.
All those is about 16 volts on the road, the tiny cover. That's how it's worked out properly, so I'll just start all over on that, take that out. That's what makes it a pain in the balls. So they're gonna take that all back out. All this gotta come back out in order to get this out, right? Then once it's all out, the only reason I gotta take it all out is when I slip the belt out, I'm ready for when it goes back together. You've gotta set up the timing marks all
Right.
together.
They have to be reset.
Right.
And this will pop in place.
Right, that comes out
That's the way it was.
easy.
But see, this thing here will have to come.
Yeah, that all comes back out again, that whole bar.
That's
That's a stabilizer.
Oh, no, that's not,
Stabilizer bar.
yeah, that doesn't mean much.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, it does.
see this?
No, not that piece. This
yeah. No, that's this piece
This
right
one's
here.
on the head. This part's on the head, right?
Yeah. So actually, this bolt and this bolt come off, and there's
probably
one
won't have to
missing,
take out the
and there's
pump
one
probably.
missing.
Right.
See it? That one's missing. But all that is just to hold this to this.
Syria, Iraq,
I mean, there's nothing there.
and now Iran.
So this doesn't really have to come out.
And
It just has to
crazy.
disconnect from this, right, just to go there.
Alongside the state of Israel,
Without taking it
according
all
to
off.
international law.
Unless you have to take it off the.
If it makes it easier, right?
I
'cause
mean,
mean,
it's
look
only,
at-
it's only 3 or 4 bolts, so I mean, that's nothing.
Right, and then, this thing might not have to come out of the way, but it might make it easier, and this one might for sure have to come out of the way.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So I'll drain, I have to drain it. No, this is it.
Yeah, no, I ain't worried about it.
And then,
That's what he does with all his, motors.
isn't it funny, how this four cylinder is, how fucking wide it is? Because I was thinking about it yesterday after noticing it, for some reason, I think it was a 6-cylinder. When you look at it from the front, it
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like
yeah,
a 6-cylinder.
Welcome everyone.
And
Good
when I look
afternoon.
back here, I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even think about it, and I'm thinking,
Today on this Sunday, this is a
2.5.
special Sunday afternoon
Yeah,
live stream. I generally don't
Yeah,
go live today, but I had the opportunity to bring back on a very special guest. a
See,
friend
we've
of
done
mine.
Maybe
enough
it'll be,
now.
maybe it'll be
And I
easier
will
than
bring him on right now
fantasizing
without
about it.
further
Well,
ado.
Yeah, you'll know when you see it, that's all, when you get into it.
Sunday, economist,
Some things are gonna have to come off.
author of
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, I'm all for it,
including
but
the
you just,
new
you know,
book, which you can
be
find
ready
in
for
the
the
video
next
description,
thing.
Understanding
Yeah,
Capitalism.
Because even as they just mentioned the time about
I
it,
know,
we
you
were
have to
thinking
now,
about it.
I
you know?
wasn't thinking about it, had to come off again.
I wasn't either, really. So I just thought about it, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, cause it's on the cabinet right here.
Goes into the head. Normally it can't go through the middle of the motor above the crank.
Right.
This is different. Yeah.
Right,
It's a weird thing.
these are on each one,
Yeah.
has its own can. That's why they're the same.
And that's why it's important that we do the compression testers now. We
Yeah.
can pretty much say that side's good.
That side's good, cause it's 185 to 195, somewhere in there.
For the first time since
So that's
the
no worries about there. We got nothing there.
I also want
Alright,
to
I'm
ask
with
you
you.
about
I'm back with
When
you.
we open this up, that's gonna tell us how bad it
Understanding
is.
Capitalism
I'm
and
back, I'm back in
Economic
with you on this,
by
but I
Vadislavs
just gotta say, I hope we can get that Mustang going. I'd rather hope we do that.
very
This might take
unfriendly to
a time
Russia,
because I'm not gonna
MEMRI
be able to, unless you say it's an emergency, you
No,
need it
it's
back
not.
by the end of the week
But he had this to
or something,
say
you know what I mean?
You know what we could do
I'm
though,
just gonna,
is
I'm
he
just
could
gonna,
take
read
his
it
plates off of
briefly.
this
He
one
said
for
about
now.
sanctions,
Put them on his Mustang. He might even be able to drive the Mustang too, you
impact on the
see.
economy of
It's a
Russia
good
as a
idea.
whole.
Do that.
You know,
It's been
that would be
doing
the best
the
one.
domestic economy, and the budget has
You know?
suffocated the problem.
I gotta pick them up at 2 o'clock.
Sanctions have not paralyzed
So when I
the
pick 'em up,
industrial complex or
we'll
provoke
bring the
impact or
Mustang down.
mobilization. Thirdly, they are, after all,
Cause all he's gotta do is tell them that
a double-edged
he's got the Mustang back on the road.
sword. Professor Wolf,
And this one, when it starts and if it's running and everything, we can do it at night. I can be behind them, so they're not gonna see the plate.
What has been the
You know?
true impact of these sanctions
Right, just get
on
them off of
Russia?
it.
That's right, just get it home.
Since they began
I don't think
years
so.
ago.
They should be able to go in there.
Sure, let me start.
Cause I don't think they
with
came off with
sanctions.
Mustang.
There really now is a considerable literature, which is either being ignored.
Yeah, and then we can take a look at his Mustang and see exactly what it
Okay,
needs.
I'm gonna move that car, so when you're gonna do this today, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do it. You tell me where you want this one.
I'm gonna move this car.
And that literature says that they don't work.
Oh, the Mustang one?
The basic message is between what countries can do to minimize and what they can do to evade, and what they can do to offset them. All three, minimize, evade, offset, and each of those in
Sometimes
different ways. Both countries and companies and individuals can escape sanctions. It's just the way it is. But perhaps the most important thing that is often left out that I could add to that literature, and why the professor you quote is quite right in saying that this is what has happened in the case of Russia. They've evaded some, they've used their monetary system
No,
to offset others. But perhaps the things that are not understood is that
Well,
war,
there's no pressure anyway.
in one way or another,
I don't think it's.
can serve as a stimulus to offset declining economic well-being.
Russians are not the first ones to do that, to show that, to discover that. The irony here is the United States.
One or the other.
We suffered the worst collapse of capitalism in its history so far, the 1930s. For 11 years at least, from 1929 to 1940, the American capitalist system collapsed. And all the efforts, first of Republican Hoover administration, then of the successive Franklin Roosevelt administrations, were unable to get us out of it, even though they tried in their way. What did finally work was war. The Second World War did what? To be very simple, but to give you an idea, it took half of the millions of unemployed Americans and put them in the uniform.
Yeah, I'm not
And
worried.
took the other
Now,
half.
you know, because once I get it out, then it's up to the guy downtown.
This is the breather for here, right?
Yeah, that's
Filter?
gotta go too. Yeah,
So you need a new filter.
and carbon. This is a carbon filter. If they don't have any of these and you can't get your hands on it, then I would say take it out and leave it out. This is going to be emission chip, but that's too old, right? You don't go through emissions anymore with that, do you?
2010? No.
Okay. Because this is the way these go. They fucking bust up like this when you take them out.
Yeah.
And what I usually do is just cut them out and don't put them back
But
in.
it's not all that different. You have an economy with plenty of problems, Russia.
And you guys can feel free to do that too. They're the microfiber. They're micros, right?
Yeah.
So this one's already, it has enough micro in it.
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
for
yeah.
to me. But this one has to do with emissions and shit, and you can't see nothing to it.
No.
Yeah. No one ever does those. Everyone forgets about them because they're tucked up in here, right?
Yeah.
And we know that these are shot because look.
Look at the dirt. Yeah, yeah.
So I'll clean all that shit and everything too. I'm gonna get a bin to put all that shit in while all the parts in while I'm doing this. And I'll start stripping it tomorrow and we'll go something.
And once the head comes off, we'll know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And then by the weekend we'll be able to bring it down the street. We'll see how many like tells you for time. It's gonna tell you a few days probably too.
Probably.
Which is what so many of our mainstream
Alright, sounds good.
media
I'm gonna move that thing and I'll see you guys in whenever. What are you saying? A couple hours or so?
Yeah, I gotta pick them up at 2.
What most of our profession teaches.
Okay, I'll make sure I'm around, Paul. Okay.
All right. To be able to get beyond the superficiality of that, and to see the system with a mixture of success and failure, strength and weaknesses that it has, and then you're able to even take the next step of realizing that the empire of the United States is now coming to an end, and that the dynamics of capitalism have left the Western Hemisphere and moved east, which everyone ought to understand, but we don't here in the United States. We are failures. So we made a terrible miscalculation. When the sanctions were applied to Russia by the people who believed they would have these effects, which they didn't. The reason they didn't have the effects is also, in addition to what they said, the allies that the Russians now have, above all, this thing called the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and half a dozen more countries that they understand. Russia turns to them. And what damage could be done by the sanctions never even became an issue because in the end China particularly stepped up and were good allies and have been ever since, as I'm speaking to you, for the Russians. But that's not so much about the Russians as about the United States not understanding that the world economy is not what it was because American capitalism is not what it was and is not capable of doing what it once was capable of doing. It's very hard for people to understand basic changes, especially when they carry negative implications, but that's the truth of where we are. It's being shown to us, for example, by the colossal failure in Ukraine.
Yeah, and the narrative in the Western media has been that more can be done now. So it was that these sanctions were going to skepticism about sanctions actually working. Unlike what the Russian is saying at the end of the MRA, there's no reports about China not being able to settle payments with its bigger state banks with Russia. But even in these reports, you have, for example, Business Insider saying that Russia is still receiving payments for raw materials such as oils and grains, and its payments for China's key technologies are also still getting through. And that the big problem is that there's money in limbo with smaller banks, and this is hurting smaller firms. Professor Wolf, could you help educate the audience about exactly why it is that the United States and the Western media are so focused on these small issues, it seems like, with sanctions and this enthusiasm that more can be done, when in fact it looks like more cannot be done? Could you help educate the audience on this contradiction?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I've been following these things now for decades, and there's an unmistakable pattern that gets reproduced. Over the last 30 to 40 years, what we have in the People's Republic of China is really nothing short of a historical, epic achievement. It will be noted for decades, for centuries to come. And this has nothing to do with whether you like or don't like the Chinese Communist Party or Xi Jinping or socialism or capital. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what they have actually been able to do on the ground in building up an economy. 40 years ago, they were the largest country by population on earth. They were also one of the poorest countries on earth. They had just come to the end of 100 years, as they call it there, 100 years of humiliation, in which they barely held on to their independence while Western colonial powers of one kind or another took over cities, regions, industries, in which opium was a national disaster, wiping out major Chinese cities. It's endless. For those of you who might really want to learn about it, an American missionary named Earl Buck wrote a book way back in the Blue Earth. If you read that, you will understand the poverty of a broken down, dying system 40 years ago. Okay. I've been conquered by a revolution, back in 1949. That communist revolution inherited one of the poorest countries on the planet. What happened in 40 years is incredible. China is now the first major economic competitor of the United States in a century. The last century has been the American Empire. We took over from the British Empire. The Chinese are now a competitor. We haven't had, the Americans that I'm talking about, we haven't had an economic competitor for a century. Russia might have been a challenge when it was the Soviet Union, ideologically, but economically, not at all. And now either. The GDP is also at the bottom of Russia, which is a rough measure of its size, total output of goods and services in a year. It's about $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion. The United States GDP is roughly 20%. There's no competition. There's no economic change. Russia is too small, too underdeveloped. I get there one day. The GDP of China is about 18 trillion. That's a whole different ballgame. People don't even know that in the United States, and you can't understand the world if you don't have at least some rough idea of the relative size of the players. If Russia has dealings with China, it's dealing with something much, much bigger and richer than itself, and a country that's in a position to help Russia in lots and lots of ways, which has gone on. All right, over these 40 years as the Chinese grow, every year. Not even close. That's why they caught up. And you can dance all you want about how and why and better, but that's the reality. And why am I telling you that? Because at every step, starting 40 years ago, the Western press was unwilling to credit what was coming out of China, what was being fed by the Chinese leaders. We're growing, we're expanding. Oh, we can now we can now have our first big ocean liner, and now we have really rapid railroads. Oh, you know, faster railroads than you do in the United States. Isn't that odd? We have high tech. We have the best telephone in the world. We have. At every step, it was said Chinese statistics are phony. It was only when large numbers of Americans went to China, got on the rapid rail that flies through half the cities of that country, to realize that they're ahead of the United States in such transportation. Far ahead. Then we have what you're asking about. When you can't challenge anymore, because really the world won't let you, the obvious arrival of China as a major economic power in the world, second only to the United States and catching up fast. Now, what do? Recognize that? No. Celebrate it? Of course not. Trying to understand it even, not much. But you can find something else to kick at. Oh, their property values are overinflated. By the way, they are. Or they're pumping a lot of money into their economy. By the way, they are. That's what economies like that do. They have problems, and then they solve them. At least that's what the Chinese have done. And that's what, by the way, we do here in the West, too. You can paint a silly picture by only talking about each problem as it arises, no matter how small, blowing it out of proportion, partly by not talking about all the successes. Around the world, the biggest success the Chinese have shown the world is they've lifted about 800 million people out of the level of extreme poverty. No other country has done that. No other continent has done that in the last 10 or 20 years. Everyone in the world knows that you either buy the super high-tech stuff from the United States or you buy it from China. Those are the two places that now produce it. If you're not familiar, let me give you perhaps the most recent example. 10 or 15 years ago, a competition began among all the major automobile producers in the world to produce an electric automobile in place of the gasoline fuel-driven automobile. Everybody is working on that. And 15 years after they start, they're there. They got electric cars and electric trucks. As I'm speaking to you, the best quality electric vehicles are made in China. And they are the lowest cost as well as the highest quality. In other words, there was a competition and the Chinese won. Not Tesla, not Elon Musk, not General Motors, all of whom are busy in China making cars and selling it in China for a major part of their profits. So they depend on China, but they didn't win that competition. Here's the name of the company, in case you haven't heard of it. B is in boy, Y is in yellow, D is in dog. The BYD Corporation is the great success story. But you wouldn't know it in the United States, partly because you wouldn't see the car here. Why? Because we have a better car? Not at all. We have a 100% tariff. In other words, if a car comes from China, costs $30,000, you can't buy it in the United States for the $30,000 that the Chinese producer, BYD, will sell it to you for. Because Uncle Sam comes in and says, you got to give Uncle Sam 100% of that. In other words, the price doubles. The car in the United States would cost you $60,000. That is how the United States deals with with having lost the competition. Somebody else does it better, cheaper. Once upon a time, and even now on the 4th of July, we talk about a society committed to competition. Yeah, but that's only when the outcome is suitable. It's like elections. You like them, except when the outcome isn't suitable, and then that's where we are at this point. So I'm not worried. If you want me to hear that the Chinese have economic problems, I'm with you. They do. I study them. They're there. The Chinese talk about them. No big secret. And they're working on it. And some of them they solve well, and some of them they do a bad job. They make mistakes, like everybody else. But that doesn't change the larger picture here, which is a childish game. Whether it's hitting them with tariffs or telling stories where you overblow this or that problem that they have, that's really a childish way of handling yourself. And you know, it reflects not so much on who you're talking about as on you to talk like that. It suggests a desperation in the United States to cover, to fake it, to protect. There's an enormous literature on the use of protection in economics. It goes back to the beginnings of the United States when we were still a colony of Britain. That history didn't go away, and one of the lessons of that history is, for a little while, yeah, you can use tariffs and protection to get yourself going. But you can't keep doing it because otherwise it walls you off from the rest of the world and makes the cost of living in your country rise because you can't take advantage of all that's being developed in the rest of the world. It's an old lesson. It has to be learned again, I guess, every generation. But we are about to condemn the American people to the cost of it. And if I have a moment, Danny, just to drive it home. Every American company in the months and years ahead, whatever they produce, wristwatches, software programs, airplanes, whatever it is, every American company is going to be converting from its cars and trucks that are its business, that are burn fuel, to the electric. That's everybody's doing that sooner or later. That's what everyone's going to do. Now, in a foreign country, for example, Europe, where 1/4 of the electric vehicles on the road today are BYD electric vehicles from China. They, by the way, have a tariff, but much lower than the United States, so the Chinese cars come in. Everywhere in the world, the company that competes with an American company will be able to buy and use highest quality trucks at the lowest price. But the American company making toothbrushes here, for example, will have to pay much more because we won't be able to buy the high quality, low cost Chinese truck because of the tariff. We'll have to buy a not as good, much more expensive GM or Ford or Stellantis or some other car. Rivian makes the trucks these days, but they're going to charge $40,000-$50,000 because they don't have the competition of the $30,000 Chinese truck. So, yeah, we can get the electric trucks and cars, but our companies will have to pay much more. That's going to hurt them competitively. You, John, and you, Mary, are going to lose your job. You in Oregon and you in Nebraska. You'll never know why your little business that employed you went out of business because they couldn't compete since they couldn't get the best, cheapest electric truck that their competitor in Bangladesh was able to do.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a great analysis. I was actually in many BYD cars in China, and I have to say, the advancement is very real. Everything that you're saying is very real. And then we just saw Huawei come out with their triple fold phone, which is alien to the entire Western world, where basically this phone can be used almost like an iPad device at any given moment and function like one. It's a huge innovation, but I wanted to ask you more about tariffs, Professor Wolf, because Donald Trump, if elected president, has said any country pursuing de-dollarization, and I'm thinking about China, I'm thinking about Russia, and of course, BRICS. Any country that pursues de-dollarization will be hit with massive tariffs. Now, the Biden administration, as you know, has instituted these massive tariffs on electric vehicles, 100%, but it also includes things like solar panels, the materials that are needed to build them, aluminum, steel, electric vehicle batteries, and also something that I think is very important, something called the de minimis loophole in customs, U.S. customs, which basically allows cheaper goods from China to come into the country at a certain limit. That is going to be gotten rid of, and all these goods will be slapped with tariffs ranging anywhere between 5 and 25%, something of that sort. So, Professor Wolf, talk about what tariffs really mean for the United States. This is a part of the economic war that isn't talked about so much. What is the impact on China, BRICS versus the U.S.'s economy?
Sure. The level of confusion here has been made much worse by two phenomena I want to start out. First of all, the word tariff. It's a bad word. It's just a name of a tax. So think of it as a tax. A tariff is a tax that the United States or any country puts on its own people if they bring goods from outside into the country. Any good or service produced in Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America, anywhere outside the United States that is produced there but brought into the United States to be sold inside the United States, that is an import in economics. We import foreign produced goods and services. And the government has the right to slap a tax, a special tax, on imported goods and services. And when you do that, the name of that kind of tax is a tariff. It's a name given to what the tax is put on. But let's be crystal clear, because clearly President Trump doesn't understand this, because he says the wrong thing and embarrassing everybody who works with him. A tariff is not paid to the United States government by another government. The tariff isn't paid by another country or another government. A tariff is paid by the American business that brings goods or services into the United States from outside. So when the Republican Party and its leader, Mr. Trump, advocate for tariffs, it means a party that told us it was the quote-unquote anti-tax party is in fact the tax party, because that's what they're proposing. A massive tax on imported goods and services. And they ought to fess up to it by calling it the tax that it is. Mr. Trump uses phrase like, and we hit the Chinese with a tariff. Yeah, you levied a tariff, but didn't hit any Chinese with it. You hit the Americans with it. They're the ones who pay. Now, what will the Americans do? The importer of French wine. Right? The wine is produced, the grapes are grown, France, and they're bottled and fermented and shipped to the United States. The American importer of the wine pays the tariff to Uncle Sam. Now that importer may want not to pay that himself, and so he will pass it on by raising the price of French wine that you pick up in the store. That way the cost of the tax is transferred from the importer, the company, to you, the consumer. Will that happen? Yes. Each importer will decide how much of it the importer absorbs and how much he passes on. Notice that if they pass it on, if you can bet lots of them will, it's going to worsen the inflation in the United States. So this genius candidate is proposing a tax that will worsen the inflation. But by carefully not noticing the connection, even though it is obvious and history proves it exists all the time, Mr. Trump can deflect understanding by talking as if he's punishing China by levying a tariff. The reason he levies a tariff is to protect American industry from Chinese competition. He can't do anything to the Chinese, which is very frustrating for him. So he pretends he's doing something, and that should be frustrating for you. Okay, now let's turn to this threat. He has threatened that if other countries stop using the dollar, now that takes a moment just to make sure we're all on the same page. At the end of World War II, 75 odd years ago, every major capitalist country in the world, plus the Soviet Union, were in desperate economic collapse. The war was bitter. The war was fought on the land and in the cities of the Soviet Union. Symbolized by the fact that today the United States has 700 to 800 military bases around the world. No other country has anything remotely like that. We have been dominant. And one of the ways our dominance worked for us was that the one currency that the whole world would use besides gold was the dollar. It was considered as good as gold. If you bought something in Nigeria, you had to pay for it because you bought it from Germany. The Germans wouldn't accept Nigerian currency. They weren't sure how secure that was. And the Nigerians couldn't get German currency. They hit upon something most could get, the dollar. The Nigerians could get it because they had to deal with something that was selling dollars, and the Germans would accept it. I will not say in the morning, we'll run this money up.